So, Katie, how's my nose look today?
It still looks a little crazy, but it's... No.
Does it?
No, it doesn't. It's just red with the big white dot on the end.
It doesn't have the white dot, does it?
No, it's a little bit. No, it's not bad, though.
It's healing, though.
That's good.
What did you say? I was asking for confirmation of that.
No, it looks really good, Ryan.
Okay, cool.
Ryan, I almost fell into the weird vibe trap.
Really?
Yeah, only for like maybe a day. But my boyfriend works so much, and I've been like actively trying to spend more time at my apartment in Toronto.
Yeah.
So I was getting the weird vibe trap, but talked to him about it. So that's good.
You talked to him and said, I'm getting in the weird vibe trap. Help me out.
Basically, help me out. Reach for my hand. So what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about the millennial traveler. You know what I mean? Those people that are just constantly traveling and you kind of look at them like, how the heck are you affording this?
Yes.
You're taking up all this time from work, if not working. And like, can I have your life?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I have your life? But also it is a very... Intense is the wrong word because people can say, oh, they travel all the time. How is that intense? But to constantly pick up and move and have to get new jobs. A lot of the people that I met when I was traveling, they would find a new place to live for a few months, get any job in their field, let's say they're doing hospitality, and then pick up and continue traveling. So that can be a lot of work in the sense of nothing's ever very stable. And you don't have a lot of personal possessions either because of that. You have... weather permitting clothes depending on the climate. So if you're doing, let's say, Southeast Asia, you may have more shorts and tank tops or t-shirts. But yeah, so it can be hard that way. So although it is a luxurious life, it's a difficult one. I mean, having to go to the bathroom in Malaysia with holes in the floor.
What?
I could only do that for so long. Don't take your toilet for advantage, people. For advantage.
For granted.
For granted.
Don't take advantage of your toilet.
Don't do that either.
Well, you know, the most traveling I've done was across Canada, which was awesome. But I knew that the first trip was 2 weeks. I knew that the next trip was a week. I've never done it where it's been like you, where I go to a new country and start a new life for a year, you know? I'd love to get your perspective on that. And in addition to that, when do you think that it's time to come home?
Well, see, that's the thing. My best friend joined me in my travels for Australia. I didn't
know that.
Yeah, she ended up coming last minute when I arrived in Cairns, the top northeast side of Australia. She ended up joining me.
Who's this?
Haley. Hey, Haley. So my best friend ended up joining me.
All these best friends.
She's the one that lived in the van with me.
You have so many best friends.
Yeah, I know. Because the amount of pita Ryan just tried to shove into his mouth. Don't you remember?
So good.
Don't you remember radio class where you're not supposed to eat half an hour before because you can hear it in your mouth? Yeah.
I never knew that.
I mean, I'm eating pita, but not since we hit record.
True. I'm like eating in the middle of it. It just shows how comfortable I am with my listeners.
Or how bored you are with this topic.
No. Have the water.
Also, everything Ryan does is wrong. He now has a tall glass of water balancing on the edge of my bed.
Okay, guys, today we were literally about to record in my car. We were about to record the whole podcast from my car because I couldn't find parking at Katie's apartment.
Oh, Ryan, I'm like totally zenned out. And Ryan calls, he's like, there's no parking! Okay, let me just pass this glass that's about to shatter everywhere over to you.
It's plastic.
Oops, I dropped it on your laptop.
That's good.
Okay, so back to what we're talking about. So moving there when I decided to live in Melbourne, I never totally moved myself in the sense of I continued having a blow-up bed for the entire year. And I bought a few decorations for my bedroom when I first moved in. So, because I knew I'd be living there it was 10 months.
Yeah.
So I knew I'd be living there. So I wanted some things, but I wasn't going to go out and buy art for my walls or a nice dresser or anything because you'd be leaving them behind. So as a traveler that way, some people don't mind. They don't like having a lot of possessions that way. They're just materialistic. I like having end tables and nice lamps and... Okay, so Ryan just had to stop the recording for a second to see if we could hear the background construction noise.
Hopefully you guys can't hear it.
My mom and both of my parents, have always said how fast I talk. And I've never heard it because most people can't hear how they sound, obviously.
Really?
But we just listened back about a minute, or not even. Oh my gosh, I really should have been an auctioneer, which is what the advice my parents always gave me. I'm going like a mile a minute.
Can you try to do like as if I'm bidding on this pita and hummus?
So we got the pita here, over there, we got the hummus. We got the hummus, and you're going to go with the...
500.
We got the 500 over here. Anybody want the pita?
You're like, yeah, 1,000.
No, but seriously, guys, let us know. Like, comment, DM us, whatever. Let us know. Do I talk quickly in these podcasts? Do you want me to slow it down?
I think most of the time you're not super fast. Maybe I talk fast sometimes.
I don't know. Guys, can you hear that?
Can you hear that?
That one's really loud.
That one's loud. What if like your neighbors are just like into some kind of weird kinky like construction stuff?
Yeah, it sounds like they're screwing over there.
No, like they're like, you know, like the guys like drilling something, and then it's just like as they're drilling they're like...
Well, there's signs everywhere that the building's under construction, but...
So that's probably more likely.
Yeah, that's probably more likely. Okay.
So, what you were saying before we stopped the recording...
Before I was rudely interrupted.
I think you were mostly talking about how you can't really keep possessions when you're traveling and how that ties into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also depends on the traveling that you're doing. When I left Australia, my mom joined me and we traveled... north for a month.
Yeah.
But then I jumped on a plane and went to Indonesia. And from there I was backpacking again like I was in the beginning of Australia.
Yeah.
So then your traveling massively changes because everything you own is on your back. Essentially.
That's true, yeah.
Essentially. Or if you have a car, you have a little bit more room for things. But
that
really...
sounds awful.
So that's the thing. Some people... This girl that I know who is still traveling, she's wonderful. I met her in a hostel in Bali. Was it Bali? Yeah, I believe. And she's German, and she had been traveling, and this was, I don't know, a year and a half ago now. She had been traveling for 2 years already, and she is still traveling. But what she tends to do is pick a new place and live there for a few months. So she'll get a job and everything, and then she picks up and goes again. But she did Southeast Asia, and she loved that everything she owned was attached to her back, that she could just pick up and go. I found that to be probably the hardest part about traveling because
you have to let things go too, probably like stuff you had collected.
Exactly. Look, I'm not wearing these shorts or whatever it may be. Call me materialistic or whatever you think fits. Look, I like makeup. I enjoy getting ready in the sense of I like having different shoe options.
Even when you're traveling?
Yeah, well, I mean, eventually you learn to live without. And that's a very freeing and humbling aspect about backpacking as well. But in the beginning, it's definitely an adjustment because you're used to opening your underwear drawer and having clean options. Now, you know, there's 7 days in the week, so you should probably have 8 or 9 pairs with you. And then, so it can be hard that way. But the thing that's crazy about my friend or someone like her that's still traveling is that, you know, there's one side of the argument where it's like if once you stop, you're going to be so far from starting your career. You know, you have no experience, and the people that are in the field that you're entering have years on you. But then meeting lots of different people while I was away, you learn that not everyone is looking for that career. Even when you say career, it doesn't need to be these big fancy jobs like lawyers or doctors. It can just be anything in your field. But some people work to travel and then come do however long that they are invested in traveling for, and then come back, make the right amount of money, and go out again. Some people, that's how they want to spend their lives.
Which is, I understand that. I think that is more understandable, especially if you're not in a job that requires a 9 to 5 and like 2 weeks off, you're going to get behind. Like if you're in the service industry or
I
even
feel like that's
retail,
one of the only ones.
That's one of the, those are kind of, even retail is probably more tough than serving, because serving you can always come back. It's
or
so
chefing,
in and out.
Like being
a chef, and you can go be a chef wherever, right? Whereas like maybe the retail store you work at isn't available where you're traveling. So like, yeah, I think you're right. I think the service industry as far as restaurants are the best place for traveling. maybe someone else, if you have a suggestion, tweet at us at ITA_podcast, or Is This Adulthood on Instagram. Let us know. But yeah, I would say that that's the main option. But you know what's interesting is that sounds more feasible to me than it does the people that have graduated and have been traveling for 5 years. Because I understand you graduate and you want to travel. Most people, though, they spend the year traveling and then they come back, like kind of like you did. But you've even said you've had friends that have been traveling since they graduated, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, my girlfriend... So
what's going to happen to them?
I don't know. My girlfriend's out there. And she lives in South Melbourne. She stayed there. But her and her boyfriend were granted their 5-year visa back in July, I believe it was.
That's different, though. She has a boyfriend that she's traveling and living with. They're creating a little family wherever they are.
Aww.
That's different, Katie. Don't you think?
Well,
if you have another person that you're going with.
Well, that's the thing. It's settling down where you are and for how long. Because once that 5 years ends up, maybe they'll apply for PR, permanent residency. Yeah. It's still years and years away. But
they'll probably have a kid. I'm calling it now. They'll probably have a kid in Australia. And then that kid's Australian. So now they're both going to be in Canada and Australia. That's totally what's going to happen. That's different.
Haley, I can't wait to meet your little baby.
Katie, that's different, though. Like, if someone's traveling for 3 years solo, they're just, you know what? Yeah, they're traveling the world. I get it. But at what point are you putting off starting your career? Right? If you're traveling for 3-4 years on your own, that is them trying to figure out where they want to live as a unit. Don't you think?
Well, you're so cute. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, they're not still traveling. They're settled
in Australia.
Yeah, they're settled in Melbourne, or Melbourne. But
Melbourne.
Yeah, I guess it's just kind of to each their own. And a lot of people might listen to this podcast or have these conversations in their own lives and go, "Why is it all about the career? Why is it all about when are you going to start your career?"
Yeah.
I guess that also depends on where you live, in the sense of how much is that career aspect pushed, you know, or maybe having to do with he's putting the lid on the hummus.
Because you're literally, Katie said before we started this, sorry if we ever get a hummus sponsor, but like Katie said that it looks like throw up. And I looked over with the gleaming sun off of the hummus, and it did look like, with like a little piece of chunk of hummus in there, it did look like some puke.
I know.
And that's what Katie said, was that it looks like throw up.
Have you ever left guacamole out on the table and it starts
going... Did you say guacamole?
No, guacamole.
Oh, is it guacamole?
And it starts going brown. Oh,
no, I didn't know it goes brown.
Rancid.
Hummus, I feel like you have to eat like right away. No, sorry, not hummus. Guacamole, I feel like you have to eat right away, don't you?
Yeah, well, it starts to go brown.
Ew.
It's kind of unsettling thinking about this hummus in your backpack in your hot car for a while.
No, it wasn't out for that long. But I think, like, what point do you think, Katie Jones, that someone has to reevaluate their travel plans and come back home? Is that a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Because you know what? I've read articles that say that moving away, or traveling for that long is selfish. I've read articles on this.
But what's selfish about it?
Because they say that you don't think about all the friends that you're leaving behind. You don't think of maybe you had to end a relationship or make a relationship long distance. And like, what about your parents? Your parents are aging, and your parents may want to see you every other weekend or whatever. So I've read articles, and I never thought about it that way, because we're young and we're like, let's travel while we're young. But like, this whole thing was about, I think it was about exchange, maybe about going on exchange. That's at least a set amount of time. But these people are traveling for 2 years. What about their family? What about their friends?
Well, I mean, but that also depends. Are they coming home or stopping back at their home on the way? I think that if you become an adult and you have plans to travel for 2 years and you're viewed as selfish because of that, then I think that that's a selfish take for that person to take. Well, that doesn't make sense. I think that that's a selfish thing to put on somebody. Like, no, be proud of your son or daughter or niece or nephew or best friend from school and encourage them and motivate them to be happy with it.
Hey guys, so usually we do our social media bump, which of course we will still do, but I think the biggest thing that we want to let you know is to subscribe.
Yeah, why haven't you subscribed yet?
Why? Like, I'm pretty sure I looked at our stats and we have people listening every week but only 50% are subscribed.
Subscribe!
Just hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts. It's not that difficult. Plus, you can set it up so you get a notification whenever we upload a new episode.
Because we know you're waiting.
You're waiting.
Okay,
TikTok.
KT Double E Jones. That's my Insta.
Oh, okay. So let's jump right into it. Mine is at Ryan Durgy, RyanDurgy, and our Instagram is
Is This Adulthood?
Is This Adulthood? And the Twitter is
ITA_podcast.
Thanks, Katie. Are you liking the Twitter more now?
Twitter sucks, but that's okay.
Oh, that's kind of rude. But
everything Ryan does is great. Okay, guys, subscribe. Tell your grandma to subscribe as well.
Also, rate our podcast too.
5 stars.
I think we have like 14 ratings. It's all been 5-star. How do you feel about that, Katie Jones?
I feel like bribery has been involved. Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
One thing I can tell you is traveling can be a very lonely thing at times, especially if you're doing it alone. I'm a very social person and I don't have problems.
No. Really?
I don't have problems or anxiety in social situations, but I don't know if I've ever told you this. The day that I arrived in Australia, I checked into one of the biggest party hostels in that country.
What a surprise.
I know, right? And so this type
in the
of
whole
hostel,
country.
It was, yeah. What it was.
Really?
But so there's a lot of hostels. The people that just stay there are people that are staying at the hostel that are traveling. You see that a lot in places in Southeast Asia.
What do you mean by that? Like
so
for like a day or two?
Like they're the people that have checked in. And the hostel that I was at, it was known as such a big party place that people just were coming up for the weekend that lived in, let's say, Melbourne. They were flying. They would be going on footy tournaments, which is like their type of football, soccer. So it was an intimidating environment when I first landed because it wasn't all like-minded people that are not from here that are checking in. It was like people that are just going away for the weekend, you know? Like if we flew to, like, New York is a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's not like people in New York are staying at the hostels there.
Exactly.
But do you think, like, is there any piece of it where, like, they kind of want to meet a Canadian girl?
Oh, I mean, maybe.
Like, do you think that's a little bit is like...
Oh, absolutely. They know they're immersing themselves in an environment where there's lots of people that are, like, new to the country or foreign to the language or whatever the situation. But, so with that said, I had planned Australia for years, and it took me 3 flights to get there, and I arrived on, like, a Saturday at 2 in the afternoon, and I missed the big shuttle bus that took the people from the airport to the hostel. So that was an opportunity that I could have met a bunch of people that were all going to this hostel and made friends on the bus. So that when you show up, there was a pool and bar, but I missed it. So when I got on my shuttle bus, I was the only person on it. And here I am in Australia, and it's just...
It was her and her vodka bottle, probably.
Oh, my God. I ended up buying a big bottle of vodka that afternoon.
I knew it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to...
Do I know you or do I know you?
No, seriously. I won't drag this story on forever, but the point is I arrive at this hostel, and all of a sudden, everyone's in full party mode. It's Saturday afternoon, so I bet you a lot of people had been already there for the weekend. And I was all alone, and I was thinking, why the heck aren't I so excited? This is what I've wanted for so long. So I went up to my room, and I started unpacking, and I felt just really uncomfortable. I met this girl. I went to the mall with her, and then I realized, what am I doing in the mall? This is not what I want to do. So I left. I told her I'd see her back at the hostel.
She wants to drink and be by the pool.
Yeah, so I left. I grabbed a bottle of vodka and I went back to my room. Seriously, you have predicted this.
Yeah.
I take a big swig in my room
Yeah.
and I'm just like, Katie, pull yourself together. There's people down there in bathing suits partying.
I did call it.
And this is what you've been looking forward to for such a long time. Get it together. So I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack. I'm going to have some of this vodka and then I'm going to go the heck downstairs. So, Dad, if you're listening, and I have
tune out for a second.
No.
Is that what? Oh.
No.
Oh, okay.
I told him this before, and I'll always remember this and hold this memory so close to me. I'm just crying at this point, and I felt so alone.
What, was this after the vodka chug? Or before?
It was all kind of intertwined, but
So Katie gets emotional when she's drunk, I feel like.
No, I'm not drunk yet, but, it was a very scary feeling to feel so scared. To be so sure of a trip you want to take, to leave your job, leave your boyfriend, move out of your apartment, to say goodbye to all your family and friends. My mom and dad threw me an awesome going away party, to take 3 flights, to finally get there, and then be really uncomfortable. I wasn't used to that feeling. I wasn't used to social anxiety. So I'm unpacking my bag, and at the bottom of it, I find a note from my dad. And he had handwritten this letter, and it basically
Did you know it was there?
No, I didn't know it was there. And it basically said, by the time you read this, you'll already be there because you've been unpacking. I hope you've had the most amazing time so far. Remember that you've earned this through, finishing and completing school. And we're so proud of you for chasing your dreams, all this stuff. And I just started crying. And it reminded me in that moment why I was doing this, why I was here. And though I felt alone and scared and in a totally new environment, that I was doing it for a reason. And I honestly probably took another chug, went downstairs, and I had the best night ever. And from there, I learned to just be okay with being uncomfortable at certain times. And it was just like, life is made up of those little moments that you really remember and really made a difference. And that was one of them. And I don't know if I would have enjoyed that entire year as much as I did if I hadn't have gotten that letter from my dad.
Isn't that awesome? And it's just interesting how right at that moment when you're feeling emotional and you probably need family support the most, and it was probably no with the time zones that it's not like you could have called your dad right at that moment. Maybe you could have, but most likely they were asleep. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you get this handwritten note that you didn't even know was there in the bottom of your luggage, and you see it, and it just that's where everything happens for a reason.
Exactly.
It really does.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's one of my biggest things to anyone that's considering traveling. I have a girlfriend that just reached out to me. She's planning on going to Australia for 8 months to a year and wants to get together, pick my brain.
Yeah.
Any advice for traveling or any places to stay. But one of my things would be expect to be uncomfortable, expect to be nervous, and really try to hone that energy in, because you learn very much so how to be alone.
Yes.
How to really understand and be at peace by yourself and by your own presence. So but I mean, anytime that you get out of your everyday routine, even if it's traveling for 2 weeks, it's an amazing and rewarding thing. And careers are so important, but so is
your life experience.
Exactly.
Yep.
Especially if that's something you want to do. If you're someone that is okay with just a week away in Europe when you're older, then that's fine too. But if you want to take off and it's feasible, go for it.
And I think the advice that I would give is I went on my cross Canada trip on my own. And I met people along the way. The advice that I would give is everyone else is in the same boat as you. Everyone else that you're meeting at the hostels, I mean, other than Australia, where it sounds like locals go to the hostels as well, they're all from all these random countries. One of the coolest places I stayed, and actually a pretty nice hostel, was in Vancouver. And they had each room with a different country's flag. Very cool. I thought that was so cool because it really shows that there's so many different countries coming together and staying there. I had someone from Australia in my room, someone from New Zealand from my room, and me and the guy from New Zealand ended up bonding, and we went and explored, and then we met up with my friend who I know in Vancouver, and then that weekend was us all hanging out as a threesome, if you want to call it. There wasn't actually a threesome, but you know what I mean? Yeah, sorry, listeners. No crazy story with that one.
But you can still use your imagination.
But I would say, I know that everyone's different. Everyone's like, well, Ryan, you can talk to anyone, right? But I still get anxiety a bit about traveling on your own. Who are you going to sit beside on the train? Who are you going to be paired with in a hostel? But I think that it's just about what you said, which is taking the initiative, going to the pool party, going to the boards game night that's happening in the lobby rather than going to a mall. It's one of those things where you can...
Guys, don't go to boards game night, just saying.
But it's one of those things where, just do it and meet people.
Nike, did you hear that?
There we go. I was waiting for it. Just get to know the people there and get to know the people while you're traveling, because people are friendly. They're in the same boat as you. They're probably just as nervous as you are to talk to you. and to talk to each other and get to know them. Now, one of the things that I would ask you, Katie, because you've planned this kind of trip, is what does it take to travel for a year as far as planning? Did you plan the whole trip in advance for that year? Did you just plan part of it and went from there? I would love to know your advice on that.
Oh my God, don't listen to my advice. I planned absolutely nothing. Oh my God, this is just bringing up so many awesome memories, but all I decided was what part did I want to start and which direction did I want to go?
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to start in the north.
Yeah, of Australia you're talking about. Okay.
So I started up in Cairns. For anyone that's looking
Cairns?
this up, it's spelled Cairns. It looks
Really?
like Cairns or Cairns, but it's Cairns. I literally didn't plan a thing.
Well, wait, did you know where you were staying when you first got there?
That's it. Where I was going and the first hostel. And then about 5 days into it, my friend Haley ended up joining me. And
was that random?
She had decided, I think a few days before I flew out.
No way.
That, you know what, can I come join you? She said, if you want to do this totally on your own, then I won't. But I think something just sparked in her. She wanted to get away and leave. And we are so close. We've lived together for years. So I said, come join me. So she did. And about 3 days into her being there, we went. She's a big wine drinker like myself. We went to this restaurant, ordered a bottle of wine, and started planning out buying a car. That's what a van. A lot of people do that there because a lot of people live in vans.
Yeah.
So we planned it all out and how much it was going to cost. And we got accepted into a Facebook group that does like tradings for that. Whatever. Go back to the hostel.
Did you buy a van?
No. So go back to the hostel. Meet these group of guys, and two of them are Irish. One of them is passed out in the sun from too much Irish drinking. But we start talking to this one guy, Ryan.
Oh, that is an Irish name.
Yeah, to this day will always be like a brother to me because of the things we experienced.
And you love Ryans.
I love Ryans. Anyways, we're talking, and what are you guys doing? Where did you come from? They had been already traveling, coming from the West Coast for a while. We expressed how we were going to buy a van, and they said, well, why don't you just move in with us?
Like in their van?
In their van.
Like live in the van?
Live in the van.
Oh, that sounds like a smart idea, Katie Jones.
Yeah.
Live in a van with total strangers in a foreign country.
So I'm saying, don't take my advice, people. No. So we ended up staying at the hostel longer than we had planned and then just kept booking another night.
Yeah.
And then probably after about a week or shy of, we went, okay, let's do this. And we were all still getting to know each other, and they had already been living in the van, so they had made it livable. There was a mattress in there.
There's only one mattress though.
One mattress.
So like what was the sleeping situation?
Oh my
in
God,
there?
this is too good. We have to like go for a drink and I can tell you these stories, but the first night
we're virtually drinking with our listeners, so
that's true. And I do have vodka in my glass.
Oh, literally, she has vodka in her glass and she gives me a glass of water. Thanks, Katie.
You can go get that beer.
What was the sleeping situation?
So the first night, and it's hot as heck there. It's summertime. It's like 40 degrees. First night, we all try to sleep in the van.
Yeah.
And we just can't do it. We're hot and we're sweaty. And I ended up sleeping in the front seat. I didn't know that I could put down like the emergency brake. So I'm sleeping with this like pole in my back. Anyways, in the morning, we decided from there we would get a blow up mattress and a little tent, or I think they already had the tent. So every night 2 people would sleep in the van and 2 people would sleep in the tent. But then we also spent a lot of time at hostels.
Was it always you and your friend Haley sleeping as the twosome?
No, because she started seeing one of them.
I knew it was going to go somewhere where like eventually it's going to be the people hooking up in the tent.
Yeah.
Actually, no, maybe in the van.
No.
In the tent? Okay,
in the tent. So, you know what? That's another piece of advice that I would personally give people. I'm not the biggest planner. I'm pretty go with the flow. Sometimes I like a good plan, but for the most part, some people would get the most anxiety ever if they entered a new country on their own without an exact plan. But all I am saying is be as organized as you want to be. But when you're in such a different environment, things are constantly going to change.
So go with it.
Go with it. You know, Haley and I were about to buy a van. Then we meet 2 guys and we lived in theirs for a month. Like things are always changing. And then in terms of planning, we knew that we were heading south all together, and there were certain things that you had to do along the way. So I guess that's really the only research I did going into it. Like you need to see the Whitsundays, and you know you obviously want to go and see the Sydney Harbor and Sydney Opera House. So then we end up meeting with a travel agent, and you tell them how long you want to spend kind of going south, the must-see places, and you end up buying a package for like a few $1,000s. So with that,
rip off.
I know, right?
I'm just kidding.
But
no, you probably could have done it cheaper, but then like, what's the cost of having to organize it all?
Now going back, if I wanted to go back,
it could be worth it. Probably is worth it.
And I think we were such party animals. So
and you would go back now and obviously do it on your own, plan it by yourself.
I wouldn't go back on my own just because I'd love to experience with friends.
But you would plan it on your own.
Yeah.
Like you would have a travel agent next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that, maybe.
One quick funny anecdote. So Haley, myself, and the 2 Irish guys are pretty big partiers.
Oh, what?
So
what a surprise, right, listeners?
We're in Cairns for about a week and a half each. In that time, there was definitely things that you could have done. Hostels also provide, shuttle buses or whatever that you can kind of go with the hostel and people in your hostel to go to certain attractions. So we finally go and sit down with this travel agent, and there's tons in the town of Cairns. So you kind of go to a few and try to get different prices until you pick one. Corey and Ryan are so hungover that whenever we enter one of these travel agencies, they can't even pay attention. They're sleeping in them. Literally, we'd be like nudging them and they'd just be sleeping. So one of the agent goes, "Okay, so you've been here for a week and a half. So have you seen this?" "Oh, no, not yet." "Have you gone here?" "Oh, no." "So what have you done?" "Oh, just kind of been at our hostel." And this travel agent goes, "The 4 of you have been here for a week and a half and haven't done any sightseeing."
What were you doing?
Just, like in that swim up pool bar.
Was it included in the hostel or you had to pay?
No, it wasn't a swim up pool. It was like I said, this was a crazy. Anyone that's listening, look up Gilligan's Island or just Gilligan's.
Gilligan's Island, yeah. I mean, if you want to watch some entertaining TV.
Yeah, no, Gilligan's. It's just known to be an insane party hostel. Look at the photos, look at the reviews.
I feel like, listeners, that there are some stories that she's not telling us right now on the air. Hopefully she'll tell me once we get off the air, because for 4 days, if you're just in one spot partying, there's some stories.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And in that moment, I think the 4 of us realized we're going to have a good time.
What I would say is, just to wrap things up, is it's interesting that you did it and didn't really have a plan other than getting there. I'm someone where I like to mostly have an idea of where I'm staying, but when I traveled Canada, I didn't plan the little touristy excursion things. I got to the places and then explored and found the touristy excursion places. I knew so many people. I would look up the top 5 things to do here, the top 10 things to do here. I got to those places and then I talked to the locals and I kind of figured it out.
That's
and then
great advice. Always talk to the locals. Trust the people that live there.
Yeah, and that's why Airbnb is kind of cool, because then you really talk to the person that owns the place and gets all their advice. Like, I went some places where they literally had a book, and when people would stay, they'd write in the book of where they went and what they would rate it and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it was a whole book of where to eat, where to go drinking, where to go on touristy things, where to take kids, where to do this, where to do that. And it was just like so cool. So I would say, like, everyone has different styles of traveling, and that's okay if you're super organized. That's okay if you're not. But I think our biggest advice
okay if you're
from
an
this.
alcoholic.
Oh, well, I think maybe you can get some help for that. But I think that the main thing when it comes down to is just go with the flow. As much as you and I, Katie Jones, can look at how someone spent 3 years away from a career in traveling, that's their life. And as long as they're happy and safe and checking in with their friends and family, I think that it's okay.
In the words of Britney Spears, that's my prerogative.
I love a Britney reference. Thank you for that. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys.
Love you.
Bye.